This is the geometry and trigonometry part of things. In the first couple of sections, 4.1, we deal with perimeter and circumference. And in the next section, 4.2, we deal with area. So we're going to take a look at these concepts. All right, so when you talk about perimeter, and we'll talk about circumference in just 1 second. The perimeter, it measures the distance around an object. All right, so the perimeter I think that's it. The perimeter, it measures the distance around an object and it's measured in the unit alone. So when I say the unit alone, let's just say if our unit is meters, if you were to find the perimeter, let's say the perimeter of this classroom would be about 200 meters, right? That would be measuring the outside distance. The perimeter, okay, it measures the distance around an object. The area measures the amount of surface an object has. The amount of surface an object has, and the area is measured in square units, right? So for example, if you wanted to find the amount of carpet to put in this room, you would use a square unit of measurement, like square feet or square centimeters or whatever you're dealing with. So the area is in the unit squared. And we're going to talk about volume later on. Okay, so I'm going to sort of introduce that now. Volume is the amount of liquid something can hold. Right. And the volume is measured in cubic units. All right, so it's the amount of liquid something can hold, and it's measured in cubic units. Okay, so for example, cubic liters or cubic gallons, that sort of thing, right? All right, so we're going to take some geometric shapes, and mainly they're dealing with the rectangle, the square, the circle. All right, so we're going to talk about finding the area and the perimeter for, we're going to first start with a square. So in a square, all sides have the same length. So if you look at some of these diagrams, you may see these tick marks. So what these tick marks mean is that these two sides have the same length. So in a square, I'm going to have 4 tick marks. That means that all of those side lengths are exactly the same. Right? If you want to find the perimeter of a square, the perimeter is going to equal to 4 times S. Right? You would just take the side length and multiply that by 4. That will give you the perimeter. The area is a side length squared. All right, so you would take whatever that side length is and you'll square it. That will give you the area. Next, we're going to look at a rectangle. And in a rectangle, the opposite sides are parallel and congruent. So if we take a look at this rectangle, and here again, this is not drawn to scale, right? These are not perfect squares or rectangles or anything I'm going to draw because I'm doing it by freehand. But you'll notice that on the top, very top and the very bottom, I have one tick mark. That means that those two sides are the same length. On the vertical sides, there are two tick marks. That means that those sides have the same length. All right. So in a rectangle, we have the length and the width. So now sometimes the width and the length change positions all depending on what you're dealing with. But one side would be the length, one side would be the width. To find the perimeter, you would simply multiply twice the length plus twice the width. Basically, you're adding up all four sides. Right? Since there's two sides with the same length L, you can multiply 2 times L, plus you can add up the side lengths for the other two sides, right? And that will give you the perimeter. The area of a rectangle is the length times the width. Okay, and there's also another figure that they deal with, and it's the parallelogram. So parallelogram is a quadrilateral, right? Quadrilaterals have 4 sides. And for a parallelogram, the opposite sides are parallel and congruent. So it's sort of like a rectangle, just skewed a little bit. And a parallelogram, we have what's called the base and what's called the height. So to find the area of a parallelogram, we just multiply the base times the height. All right. So now to find the perimeter of a parallelogram, you would simply just add up all your side lengths, right? But for the area, you have to multiply the base times the height. Okay, and the height would be the vertical piece that would be given. And then we have a circle. So in a circle, we have the center of the circle, right? In a circle, we have what's called the radius, and the radius extends from the center of the circle to the outer rim of the circle, right? And that's called R. Now, there's no such thing as the perimeter of a circle. We call the perimeter aspect of a circle, we call that the circumference. So it has the same definition as a perimeter, it just applies to a circle. The circumference is 2 times pi times r, right? And that would give you the circumference or the distance around the circle. The area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. So in the first couple of, well, at least in the first couple of sections, these are the geometric shapes we're dealing with. All right. So now let's take a look at some examples. All right, so this is problem number 5 from 4.1, and it says find the perimeter of the figure, leave the answer as a mixed number. All right, so this figure is a quadrilateral. It's a four-sided closed figure. So I'm simply going to add up the side lengths, right? So that doesn't really matter where you start. So I'm going to basically start at the top. So this is 4 1/8. My next side length is 4. My next side length is 7 1/8. And my last side length is 4. And I'm basically going to add all 4 of these numbers up. So now when you add fractions, so it's like I'm going to add my fractions and I'm going to add all my whole numbers. When you add fractions, you keep your common denominator. So if I'm going to add 1/8 plus another 1/8, I'm going to keep the common denominator, which is 8. And then I'm going to combine my numerators. 1 plus 1 is 2. So 1/8 to 1/8 all together is 2/8. Right? And now I'm just going to add up all my whole numbers. 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 7 is 15. 15 plus 4 is 19. Now, the only thing about this is whenever you write out a fraction, it has to be in lowest terms. So I'm going to bring over my 19. I can reduce 2 and 4. I can reduce that by 8. I can reduce 2 and 4 by 2. So if I reduce the top by 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1. And for the bottom, 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, so our final answer is 19 1/4. All right, so for this problem number 5, don't really complicate it. You can just add your fractions, add all your whole numbers, then just simplify any fraction. Okay. All right, number 6. It says find the perimeter of the figure, and I'm going to blow this up. All right, so notice that this is not a square, it's not a rectangle, it's sort of a mix of a couple different shapes. So this is how I like to solve these problems. The first thing I would like to do is I would like to find, like if I were to make this thing a square, or in this case a rectangle, what is the overall length? What is the overall height? Okay. And then we're going to proceed further. So if I'm looking at my overall length, do they actually give me that number? Well, if I look at the bottom, they give me the length from one side to the other side is 17, right? So I know the overall length should be 17. Now I want to find my overall height. So do they give us the overall height? It looks like they do. That overall height is 19, right? So any questions about what I just did? I'm finding the overall height and the overall width. Okay. And for whatever reason, I can't erase. Let me just try it again. All right, so from this point, I'm going to break the figure up into different pieces. Now, however you break the figure up is totally up to you, but you should get the same answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up by drawing a line here. Right? So I can clearly see that I have two shapes, two rectangles. I'm going to call this rectangle 1, and I'm going to call this rectangle 2. All right. So now I want to find all of my side lengths. All right. So what would be the length of this side? Well, if this is 19 and if this is 8, then this would have to be what? Well, 8 plus what will give me 19? 11, right? So if this vertical side is 8, this vertical side would have to be 11. Is everybody okay with that? Because at 11 plus 8 make 19. So now I'm going to use that overall length to find this missing piece. So what should be the length of this piece? Well, that's right, which is going to be 8, right? So this is 8 feet. Okay. So any questions on where 11 feet comes in and where 8 feet comes in? All right. So now I'm just going to add up all my side lengths. So I have 19, which is this side, plus 9, plus 11, plus 8, plus another 8, plus 17. And I believe once you add all this up together, you should get 72 feet. Okay. So any questions about number 6? I kind of broken it up into 2 rectangles. Then we're able to find all of the side length by using that overall length and the overall width. So at least my number 6 is 72 feet. Okay. So that's area, let's see, that was area. All right, so let's take a look at number 8. This says find the circumference of the circle and use 3.14 for pi. Round to at least 1 decimal. All right, so this is a circle. So we looked at the formulas earlier. The formula to find the circumference of a circle is 2 times pi times r. So we're going to substitute pi for 3.14, and we're going to substitute r for 6. So the circumference is equal to 2 times 3.14 times 6. And once you multiply that up, I believe you should get 37.68 feet. Now here's one thing about pi. If they tell you to substitute pi for, let's say, 3.14, you want to substitute it, because if not, you may have some rounding error. So this is what I mean by that is if I put this in the calculator 2, and on this calculator, it has a true value for pi. So if I put in 2 times pi times r, which is 6, I get 37.69. When I use 2 times 3.14 times 6, notice I'm going to get a slightly different answer. Okay. So if they're telling you to use 3.14, I would use 3.14. Okay, because you'll see if you use that true value for pi, in a lot of cases, your answers are going to be totally different. Okay. All right, that's number 8, and this is number 7. Okay, 7 says find the perimeter of the figure, use pi as 3.14, round to at least one decimal place. And we can see that this figure, it consists of a half circle or a semicircle, and it consists of a square. And we're asked to find the perimeter. Okay. Now, as far as the circle is concerned, I'm going to go back to those formulas that we were looking at earlier. Here they are. Okay, and here we have a circle. This is a semicircle. Right. So it's basically just a circle cut in half. So we're going to cut all of those formulas in half. So in order to find the circumference of a semicircle, I'm simply going to take the formula for the circumference and divide it by 2. So the circumference of a semicircle is pi times r. The area of a semicircle is pi r squared divided by 2. So we simply take the area and divide it by 2. So we're going to use this part. The circumference of a semicircle is pi times r. All right. So I believe it was this one. All right. So we have the half circle or the semicircle in the top. So for the semicircle, we have the circumference is equal to pi times d. Pi times r. So we know pi is 3.14. What is r? Well, if you look back in the figure, notice that the overall length of this is 4. So that means for this semicircle, the diameter has to be 4. But we don't want the diameter. The diameter goes from one side of the outer rim through the center to the other. We only want the radius. So I believe that radius is going to equal to 2, right? So in order to find the circumference of the semicircle, it's going to be 3.14 times 2, which is 6.28. All right, so that would give us the circumference for the semicircle top. So now we have to find the perimeter for the sides. Well, this is where you want to be careful. Notice that I'm looking at the outside diameter, or the length around the outside. So as far as this dashed line is concerned, I won't use that dashed line in my rectangle perimeter, right? I'm only going to use this side which is 4. I'm going to use this side, which is 4. And I'm going to use this side, which is 4. All right, so 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12. So now in order to find the total perimeter, I'm just going to add the 2. So the total perimeter That's equal to 12 plus 6.28, which is 18.28, which is 18.3 meters. All right. So here we had two figures to compose one figure. So you want to be careful what you're actually finding. So we found the circumference, which was the top half, and then we found the three sides of the rectangle. All right, now in the next section, this is the area section. So for problem number 2, it just simply says find the area. And this is a rectangle, so in order to find the area, I'm going to multiply the length times the width. The length is 1.8, the width is 0.7. So if we multiply 1.8 times 0.7, I believe we're going to get 1.26. Let me just make sure that is right. 1.8 times 0.7, yeah, 1.26. And since we're talking about area, it's meters or centimeters squared. But the units are given to you. All right, so anything with square units is an area measurement. All right, going further down. This is a parallelogram that I was kind of referencing earlier. So in order to find the area of a parallelogram, I'm simply going to multiply the base times the height. The base equals to 9, and the height equals to 6. So I'm just going to multiply 9 times 6, which is 54 square yards. Okay. All right, so that's 54 square yards. All right, now we're going to take a look at problem number 4. And number 4 says find the area of the enclosed figure. So now, sort of like that problem in 4.1 where we kind of split it up into different shapes, I'm going to do the same thing here. But first I want to start by finding the overall width and the overall length. So what is the overall height? Well, I'm going to take all of these vertical line segments and I'm going to add them all up to give me this total vertical height. So if I look at all my pieces, I have 33, 19, and 10. So 33 plus 19 plus 10, that's going to give me 33 plus 19 plus 10, just to show where all these numbers are coming from. That's going to give me 62 meters. All right, next I want to find an overall length. So it seems like they give us the overall length, right? It's 63 meters from the bottom. So that's the first thing. Find your overall length, your overall width. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up into different figures. So now you may cut it up differently than I am, but I'm going to draw a horizontal line here. And I'm going to call this rectangle 1. I'm going to draw a horizontal line here. I'm going to call this rectangle 2. And down here I have rectangle 3. So now since we're finding the area and not the perimeter, I'm going to find the area of rectangle 1. I'm going to find the area of rectangle 2, the area of rectangle 3, and we're going to add them up all together. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the area for R1. So now in order to find the area of any rectangle, you need to know the length and the width. So I know that my width or my height is going to be 33. But what is my length? It should be 63, right? Because this expands my entire figure, which is 63. So if I find the area for rectangle 1, that's equal to the length times the width. The length is 63, the width is 33. And then that'll give me the area for rectangle 1. Right. So the length is 63, the width is 33. And I believe if you multiply all those up together, you should get 2,079 square meters for the area of the first rectangle. All right, so now we want to find the area for the second rectangle. So in order to find the area, you need the length and the width. So if I look at R2, notice they give me that the width or the height is 19. Right, that would be the length of this side. What is my length? Well, keep in mind that if the total length is 63, and then if this length is 28, I can simply subtract 63 minus 28. That's going to give me 35, right? Because 35 plus 28 gives me 63. So for my second rectangle, the length is equal to 35. The width is equal to 28. Or excuse me, the width is equal to 19. Because I'm dealing with this area. So we have 35 and 19. So if we multiply 35 times 19, we get 665 square meters. All right, so now we're going to find the area for R3. So the area for R3, that equals to the length times the width. So it looks like the length is 63 and the width is 10. So if we multiply 63 times 10, we get 630 square meters, or meters squared. And now the last thing to do is find the total area. So I'm going to take 2,079 plus 665 plus 630. And when we add all of those up together, we should get 3,374 square meters. All right. So first, just to recap, find your overall length, your overall width, subdivide your polygon into different shapes. Okay, so here I divided into 3 rectangles. I use horizontal slices. You could also use a vertical slice where you could slice this vertical, all right, and then if you were to slice it vertical, you could slice it here, and you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 figures to deal with. All right, any questions about number 4? And here is one. This is the last one, number 10. There's usually some questions about this one. Okay. I believe it's on one of those videos, but we will work through this one. And it's an area application, and it says a garden is rectangular with a width of 8 feet in length and the width is 8 feet and the length is 6 feet. So I'm going to sketch that out. And it says it's surrounded by a walkway that's 2 feet wide. How many square feet of area does the walkway cover? So first I'm going to draw that rectangular garden. And it says that it's 8 feet by 6 feet, right? All right, so this is the little garden with flowers in it or whatever. Then it says it's surrounded by a walkway 2 feet wide. So around this garden is a walkway that extends 2 feet and I don't know why my pen is not erasing. Okay, so that's what the walkway around the garden looks like. And it extends 2 feet from each side. What we're asked to do is find the area of the walkway. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can make this not look too messy. All right, so here again, I want to find the total width and the total length. So what's my total length? Well, there's 8 feet from the length of the garden, and then there's 2 feet on each side, right? So my total length is 12 feet. Next, I'm going to find the total width or height. So the width of my garden is 6, and then it extends 2 feet on each side. Therefore, the total width is 10 feet. All right, now the next thing I want to do is I want to subdivide into different shapes. Okay. So I'm going to kind of erase some of this stuff that's on the inside. Okay, for whatever reason, this pen is not working. All right, so I'm going to divide this up. And I really do want to remove these lines. I'm going to use some horizontal slices. I'm going to divide it here. And I'm going to divide it here. And then that's going to give me 4 shapes or 4 different rectangles. And let me see if I can remove the lines. That would help out a whole lot. All right, so it looks something like this. All right. So I'm going to call this rectangle 1. I'm going to call this rectangle 2. I'm going to call this rectangle 3 and rectangle 4. So just like we did in the last problem, we're going to find the area for each rectangle, add them together. All right, so first let's find the area of rectangle 1. So the area of rectangle 1, that's equal to the length times the width. What is the length and what is the width? Well, I know that my length should be 12 and my height is going to be 2. Right, so my length here is 12 because that's my overall length, and then my height is 2, right, 2 feet because it extends 2 feet. So if I find the area of rectangle 1, that's 12 times 2, which is 24. The same thing is true for area 2, the area of rectangle 2. So to find the area of rectangle 2, I'm going to use the area formula for a rectangle. That's the length times the width. The length is going to be 12. The width is going to be 2. Right? Because my length is the overall length. And since it extends 2 feet, the height is 2. So once I multiply the length times the width, again, I get 24. And since I'm talking about area, that should be square foot. Now I want to find the area of rectangle 3. So the area of rectangle 3, that's equal to the length times the width. I know that my length should be 2 and my height should be 6. So my length is equal to 2 feet and the height is equal to 6 feet. right? So if I multiply 2 times 6, I get 12 square feet. And then last, we're going to find the area of rectangle 4. And the area of rectangle 4 should be the exact same area as rectangle 3, right? Because they have the same dimensions. The length is 2 feet and the width is 6 feet. So to find the area of rectangle 4, the height is equal to 6. So the area of rectangle 4 is 12 square feet. So now to find the total area of the walkway, we just add up all 4 rectangles. So the total area is 24 square feet plus another 24 square feet plus 12 square feet plus another 12 square feet. Add that all up together and I believe we get 72 square feet.